Today, we're going to be going over 3 moves that, if executed properly, DBs cannot guard. So the first one is going to be a hesitation skip release with either a jab step or a hesitation skip and go release. So this is a great example of this release from Amari Cooper. When you see a lot of top wide receivers, or I should say a lot of top route runners, like, a Devontae Adams type, Keenan Allen, Justin Jefferson, Amari Cooper, they all have some type of variation of this release. So we're going to break down the really minor details of this release so you guys can use it yourself. So we have inside shade press coverage here, and Amari Cooper is going to be running a fade route. So the great part about this release is it kind of puts the DB in a bind. He has one of two decisions to make. He's either going to sit and hold his leverage to the inside, which gives us a free outside release, or what he could do is jump to try to take away the outside release. And because of this release, I'm able to react, put the brakes on, and take the inside release and take what the DB gives me. A great receiver needs to have a plan off the line of scrimmage versus press, but also needs to be able to react with his feet and with his body to get separation. So let's play at full speed. So this release starts with something called a kick step. And obviously, you see Amari Cooper gives that great move at the top. Quarterback kind of sold the throw and threw it a little bit later. This ball probably should have been thrown right here because this looks like a cover 2 defense. So like a cover 2 defense would be where a DB is sitting and he's in charge of the flats and maybe the safety is coming over the top. But this honestly looks a little bit more so like man coverage, not so much cover 2 from this DB. So I really think it's just a safety help scenario. But the quarterback needs to throw that ball on a line. That's why it's incomplete. So this release, you guys, starts with the back foot of Amari Cooper. So you take this quick step behind your front foot. We call that a kick step. What that does is that allows your hips to load up and it allows you to get into the skip portion of this release. So you kick with the back foot, and then essentially what you're going to do with your left foot is take a hop. And with your left foot on this hop, you're trying to hop on a 45-degree angle to threaten this DB vertically. This is the step that matters when it comes to making him make a decision. Should he stay or should he go? This is the step that makes him do that. So we kick behind and then we skip. And you see how he's skipping at a 45-degree angle. So you see a lot of guys, this is like a basketball move, if you will. If this DB sits to the inside and we're skipping like this and we're closing the space because we're attacking vertical, all we'd have to do is just take off and run off of this step. And that hesitation step kind of got the DB to settle, got him to hold his feet, and then I could just take off vertical. That's why this move is so hard to guard for a DB, because he doesn't know. We could go one of two ways, right? So if that DB wants to get anxious, and as we start to skip to the outside, guess what we do? We just put the brakes on with the outside foot. It's not even a move that's predetermined. Sometimes you can predetermine this move and maybe sell it a little bit more. When that foot gets down, you sell it with your hips, you sell it with your shoulders to get this DB to bite. But in this case, because the DB got over anxious and jumped outside leverage to take away the outside release, we just put the brakes on and then take the inside release. It's easy money, you guys. And the reason why it's such a great release is, again, it forces the DB to have to decide to do something. If you're not a fan of that like skip release, you could also do this on a slide release where you take your inside foot, you jab, you push off of it, and you slide to the outside on a 45-degree angle. That's the key. And if this DB sits, you just slide and go. If this DB jumps, you slide, put the brakes on, and take the inside release. On a fade route, some of you guys might be in a situation where you can't take an inside release, like it's a mandatory outside release. So I maybe wouldn't use this release. But if you're running a route like where you could release outside or inside, like for example, a post route, an out route, a corner route, this is absolutely a release that you guys can do, okay? So we're going to play this again full speed one more time, and then we'll get to the next release, the next move, I should say, that wide receivers need to use that DBs can't guard if we execute it properly. Now, before we get into the next move, you guys, if you are a wide receiver watching this or a quarterback and you would like to train with myself and my staff of coaches this offseason, we're going to be traveling out to 15 different cities across the entire country, you guys, for 2-day-long QB and wide receiver training camps. So these training camps, you guys, we limit spots so we can work with each one of you individually, so all of our camps will sell out. And our first 3 camps, San Francisco, Orlando, and Phoenix, we only have about 10 spots remaining in each one of those camps. San Francisco, we only have about 6 spots remaining. So guys, if you've been waiting to sign up, make sure you get your spot. Go to that very first link in the description below. That is where you can sign up, and the rest of these camps will start to sell out, you guys. After that, we'll be coming out to Columbia, South Carolina, then Seattle, Washington, Oklahoma City, Oklahoma, Nashville, Tennessee, Milwaukee, Wisconsin, Austin, Texas, Atlanta, Georgia, Denver, Colorado, Columbus, Ohio, Boston, Massachusetts, Salt Lake City, Utah, and finishing it off in Los Angeles, California. So guys, if you want to sign up, want to come out and work with us for 2 full days, our camps, the style is really like, we're going to put you through drills, going to put you through routes, quarterbacks, going to put you through certain throws. If you mess up, we're going to correct you. We're going to take the time to actually explain what you're doing wrong and how you can improve. And that's why they sell out, because again, we can't do that if there are a million people there and we just let anybody attend. So guys, very first link in that description below is where you can sign up. We'd love to have you there. Now, the next move that we're going to be discussing is from Jeremiah Smith here at the bottom, or I guess you could say to the right of your screen, and this is going to be a throw-by move. So a throw-by move, it just is icing on the cake if you guys can sell your routes vertically properly. And especially, he's going to be running just like a simple like 10-yard stop route, which is like a deeper hitch. I'm sure a lot of you are used to like just a 5-yard hitch where you turn around, the ball's there. A stop route, and you guys might have different terminology for this, but a stop route is just a deeper version of a hitch, where the ball's out, thrown on the wide receiver's outside shoulder. So leading up to 10 yards, what Jeremiah Smith does a great job here is selling vertical, right? And that's what all wide receivers should have to do on a route like this. But this throw-by move where he's swatting the back of his arm, this is not a flag. I posted this clip on Instagram, and a lot of people were saying like, oh, that's a flag, that's a push-off, that's PI. It's not a push-off. If the ball is in the air and he does this, then yeah, it might be. But at the same time, he's swatting his arm, which is just be considered hand fighting. If the DB can get hands on us, we can swat his hands no problem. The only time you might run into a pass interference call is if the ball's in the air and you like blatantly shove him in the back or like shove him in his hip to make a play on the ball. That's when it would be pass interference. But if you're mid-route, or I guess you could say mid-play, and the quarterback hasn't delivered the ball yet, this is totally legal and totally fine to use, okay? So you would use this if you have a DB. So these are the scenarios you could use this move in. If you have inside shade press and you have to run a route like a hitch, like a stop, a curl, a dig, or a post. You could also use this if you have outside shade press and you have to run a route like an out route, maybe even a comeback route or a corner route to be able to slip back underneath them and get to the rest of your route. So let's talk about what you have to do leading up to the throw by, because the throw by only works if we get this DB to open up his hips and like commit. Some people call it open up the gate, which essentially means you want his hips, you want his shoulders facing the opposite end zone. See how his hips and shoulders are facing this end zone? We want him to be fully flipped to the other side. And how I do that is by selling vertical. So selling vertical comes down to 3 things. And some of you guys have been watching these videos know what I'm about to say. You give this move. The most important thing is going to be your speed, right? It's not 100% full speed out of control like you're running a 40-yard dash, because it's hard to decelerate like that. Even Tyreek Hill, when he runs routes, he's not going 100%. He's probably going like 90%. Now, his 90 is much faster than pretty much everybody's 90. But at the same time, it's a controlled full speed so you guys can still cut. Second thing is going to be your stride lengths. You look at Jeremiah Smith from the top of the route all the way to the end of the route. He doesn't start shortening up his strides and preparing for the break. His strides are the same, his speed is the same, and last but not least, his body language is the same. Nothing about it. You see how he's got that slight forward lean. This looks like a fade. This looks like he's running deep, and that's what's going to get the DB to commit. Now, when it's time to make that break at the last second, that is when I want to swat him by. So there's 3 points of attack here on a throw-by move. You either want to go back of the arm or the elbow. If the DB's really tight to you, you want to do the back of the hip or the back of the shoulder. But back of the arm and back of the elbow is generally where you want to be if he's this far from you. Now, the mistake a lot of receivers will make on this throw-by is that they'll start putting hands on this DB like right here, 2 yards before the break actually happens. You don't want to put your hand on him to throw by, because as soon as he feels that, 1, you're going to slow down because you're not pumping your arms, but 2, that tells him, hey, he's going to try to throw you by. Let's slow down and let's expect a break. I've seen some receivers mess with DBs on that, where they'll put their hand on them and then they'll just continue to run a fade to get him to stop so they could get a step. If that's a way you want to manipulate a route, that's fine. It's a very, very minor detail that's not an essential, but it's something that you could do, right? So again, you have to sell vertical at the last second. It's like you are pushing off of a wall. You are being aggressive. You're being violent with your hands, and then you see the amount of separation that we're able to get. Throw by doesn't work if you don't sell vertical. You have to sell vertical, then throw by, and don't show the throw by too early by putting your hand on that DB. So let's play this again full speed. Perfect example here from Jeremiah Smith on how you can execute that throw by. And remember the routes we discussed into when you can use it. Now, this is another route here from Mari Cooper, and he's going to be running a slant route versus inside shade press. So the reason why, and this is a release that pretty much most of you know, it's going to be called a diamond release, but this diamond release has a little bit of a variation to it, and this is why it's very, very hard to guard from a DB, because it involves pairing your routes together. So what do I mean by that? So a diamond release, in simple terms, is he would take 3 steps at this DB's outside shoulder and outside hip. And the goal would be to get him to open up the gate. We'd have to sell vertical, just like we talked about on that throw-by move. And then on the 3rd step, so what, his left foot is back, so it would be left, right, left. On that left step, the 2nd left step or his 3rd step, he would take that inside arm, put it on the back of the shoulder, the hip, or the elbow, just like that throw-by move that we just talked about, and he would slip under him. Now, It is very rare because when it comes to slant routes and fade routes, you want to make them look the exact same to a certain point. So if I had to run a straight up fade versus this coverage, would I just take off and run? No, I wouldn't do that, because if I just take off and run, when a DB's inside shade, his goal is do not get beat to the inside and force the receiver to the sideline. So if I just take off, he's going to stay patient. He's probably going to get hands on me at some point and squeeze me to that sideline. So to be able to give the quarterback room on the fade ball to lead me and I'm not right on the sideline, what would I do? I'd attack this DB's leverage to the inside. I could give him like a crossover where I step with my outside foot and then fake with the inside foot, just need him to hold for a second. I get my hip right past his hip and I get skinny and try to stack him to give the quarterback room to fade me. So the release that you would use on a fade is also the release that you would want to use prior to the diamond release that you are taking. So let's watch what Amari Cooper does here. He does a little like shuffle hop release, then he goes into his diamond release to further make this DB think. He's got 5 yards of separation right here, you guys, to further make him think it's a fade. You have to make the release look like the release that you would use on a fade route. Don't have two separate things when you're running a slant, when you're running a fade. It's just not going to work that way, okay? Against a disciplined guy. Against an undisciplined guy, probably anything will work, right? So again, you see how he comes off the ball. He gives this little punch. I call this like a punch crossover release where you punch with your back foot, you reach, and then you hit a crossover. So he reaches, 1-2. And again, that's exactly how he'd run his fade. And then what does he do? 1, that would be considered the first step of his diamond. 2, 3. And on those 3 steps, he's selling vertical with what we talked about with Jeremiah Smith. Good speed, good stride, good body language. Doesn't even have to use a throw by because of how much we got that DB to open up. And you see the separation he's able to get. That's impossible to guard, you guys, because the DB has to make a decision at a certain point. It's all about making him make a decision with every single release and every single move that we do. And if there's no defense for a perfect route, and that's a perfect route there from Amari Cooper.